And welcome back to another episode of the Double Doink Podcast. My name is Brenden. Thanks so much for tuning in today. We're talking some New England Patriots today. They are a very hot team heading into the NFL draft. I thought the best person to do with it is Mr. Doug Kyed. He is a writer for the Boston Herald. He's been covering the Patriots for a very long time. Doug, how we doing?
Doing well. How you doing, Brenden?
Doing well, man. Can't complain. Like we talked about at the beginning of before we got on. Hoping the next 2 weeks go by fast. It's we're kind of in that little lull of the draft area part of it.
So this is where all the silly rumors start happening, and that's, I guess, kind of a fun part. But also, yeah, I'm right there with you. I would love the NFL draft to be this week, but do have to wait one more week after this.
It should be at the beginning of April every year. I feel like the NFL calendar doesn't do it right. It should be kind of like a nice transition from free agency almost into the NFL draft, but gives us this kind of 2-week layover, which we're talking rumors and whatnot. And the Patriots, there's plenty of them to go around. They hold the number 3 overall pick, which we'll dive into. But before we do that, I do kind of want to get a basis and a general kind of observation of what's happened in New England over the last couple months. So they hired Eliot Wolf as the quote unquote general manager. And Gerard Mayo's taken the head coaching duties. So what have you made so far of what the New England Patriots have done over the last couple months?
Yeah, I mean, in free agency, they really put an emphasis on just re-signing their own guys, which I think came as a little bit of a surprise because Gerard Mayo said on the radio after he was hired, before free agency started, that, the Patriots had cash to burn. So everyone assumed that meant that they would be out there spending freely and wildly in free agency. And I mean, they spent a lot of money, but it was on bringing back their own guys. It was Mike Onwenu, it was Kyle Duggar, Kendrick Bourne. They really didn't make a high-profile outside signing, which they tried to with Calvin Ridley. That didn't work out. I think that the current structure of their team, with questions at quarterback, questions about offensive talent, made it harder to sign other free agents out there as well. I think they might have been interested in someone like Tyron Smith or Mike Williams, but there's just better teams out there for those guys to go to. So the Patriots really would have had to overspend, which I don't think would have been smart. So now they're stuck here, kind of carrying over a lot of the same roster that they had last year, that only won 4 games. Quarterback's gone. That's an important part. And they do have the opportunity to still improve their team for the 2024 season, the NFL draft. But in all reality, I'm kind of looking at this team in 2025 and beyond more so than 2024, just because I think it's kind of a waste of time, honestly. Like, maybe they'll wind up making me look stupid, but I think it's kind of a waste of time to really go all in for this season.
When Bill Belichick was confirmed leaving New England and they had a general manager and a head coaching opening for on both sides, did you expect them to stay internal? Because both Mayo and Wolf were internal hires. Did you think, when you were going into this process, did you think this was the way they would go?
Ultimately, yes. Gerard Mayo had been, rumored as the next head coach for a long time. And Eliot Wolf, pretty soon after this whole process started, everyone had kind of heard that he was the most likely option to be named that de facto general manager, or to be given those de facto general manager duties, because, he still doesn't have that title. He's still the director of scouting. And Robert Kraft said at the NFL annual meeting that, the Patriots kind of have to see how the draft goes and then decide how to move forward with that GM position in the future. I expect Eliot Wolf to maintain those duties, but I mean, if they're the laughing stock of the league in the NFL draft, the way that they were in maybe 2022 when they were drafting Cole Strange and Tyquan Thornton and all these guys, then maybe they do have a full search and look outward. But yeah, this is how I was expecting things to go so far. And basically, we'll just have to see how the ownership feels about the draft to see if this is going to be the plan moving forward as well.
What have the vibes been like for Robert Kraft? It's kind of a weird summer or spring. He had the Apple documentary drop, right? New guy surrounding him. He hasn't had anyone else besides Bill Belichick for 20 plus years. What have you kind of learned about what the headspace Robert Kraft is in right now?
I think it's somewhat freeing for the ownership, for Robert and Jonathan Kraft, to be able to, do things their way, to hire the guys that they want to bring in, to bring on the guys that they want to bring on. I will say, though, that like publicly, there's not a lot of support in New England, at least from the vocal minority, maybe, for Robert Kraft right now. A lot of people have kind of turned against the Krafts and the team in general after what happened with Bill Belichick, which, I didn't really know how all of this was going to go, especially after a 4-win season. Like, I figured that a lot of the fan base would say, it's time to move on. They've made the right decision here. But I think that, I don't know, between the Dynasty documentary and what happened in free agency and, just doing these internal hires, there's not a lot of current public support for the Crafts right now, which I think is a big change for them because they've been so beloved here in New England for so many years.
One last question kind of on the internal process. What have you learned about Eliot Wolf over the last couple of months? What he likes in football players, what he doesn't, his process, scouting. Just kind of give me the zoomed out look on Eliot Wolf heading into the draft.
First of all, he's just very well respected around the league. I was asking a lot of people about him at the combine, at the owners' meetings, and no one has a bad word to say about Eliot Wolf. They all felt like he was prepared for this role, that he's kind of been preparing for this his entire life. And he has changed the scouting process in New England from kind of more of a role-based scouting grading process to more of a value-based grading process, which I think was kind of a change for a lot of people within the organization because outside of Alonzo Highsmith, all of the scouts, all the executives are ones who were working under Bill Belichick. So that has been a change, but talking to people around the team, it seems like it's also been a pretty welcome change that the system has been streamlined, that now it helps to have Eliot Wolf. Obviously, no one has a bad word to say about Bill Belichick. Certainly not saying that. But during the season, Eliot Wolf has a lot more time to be scouting and studying these prospects. So there's a little bit less work involved for the scouts of writing up their scouting reports because Eliot Wolf already kind of knows what's going on, whereas Bill Belichick had to play a lot of catch up after the season.
Okay, let's dive into the number 3 overall pick. So the New England Patriots, like we said, own the number 3 overall pick in the NFL draft. So this is an opinionated question. This is going to be what you think the Eliot Wolf and the New England Patriots are going to do. Let's say quarterbacks come number 1 and 2 overall. Caleb Williams goes number 1. Washington either picks Jayden Daniels, J.J. McCarthy, Drake Maye, who their pick of the litter. The Patriots hold the number 3 pick, and they're on the clock, and 2 quarterbacks are gone. What do you ultimately think New England does with that pick?
I think they take a quarterback. I think they almost have to, especially with, like I said, some of the communication from Robert Kraft at the owners' meeting saying, he wants to wind up with the young, talented quarterback of the future, that what happens in the draft kind of dictates what the Patriots are going to do moving forward with Eliot Wolf. I think that there seems to be some pressure there. And I mean, quite honestly, like they almost have to, honestly, because they don't have a quarterback. Like it's so risky to trade down or to wait until the second round or even wait until next year to find that quarterback. Because right now it seems like there's, at least 3 quarterbacks that are viewed as worthy of the top 3 pick. And now, since J.J. McCarthy's entered the mix, it seems like there might be even 4 quarterbacks worthy of a top 3 pick right now. And there's no guarantee that that's going to happen in 2025. Like it already seems like it's a pretty weak quarterback class. Maybe someone, vaults up the rankings or whatever it is. But like if you have your choice between 4 guys right there, 2 of them obviously will likely be off the board, or even the choice between 2 guys, like you almost have to take one. So ultimately, it's been my belief for a long time now that the Patriots would take a quarterback at number 3 overall. And from the people that I've spoken to, they would certainly be comfortable with any of the top 3. And I think that there's some kind of rising support for JJ McCarthy as well.
So you would take a quarterback as well if you were running the team.
Yeah, absolutely. And for a lot of the reasons I mentioned, I like Drake Maye. The ball just comes out of his hand so differently. Like they're just so forceful. Great fastball on Drake Maye. Jayden Daniels, I'm not sure if he has the ceiling that Drake Maye has, but he's got a higher floor and he's like such a playmaker with his legs. He might not be Lamar Jackson, but he's at least Lamar Jackson light. And he's got such an accurate deep ball. And then JJ McCarthy's got a lot of decent traits as well. I think I studied him pretty hard last week. And, I think that people think of him as this like kind of like Mac Jones, Kirk Cousins type of guy. Whereas like his athleticism is honestly one of his better traits. Like that guy's pretty fast. He can move around the pocket. He can throw off platform. He's got a lot of mobility, even scrambling on design runs, on options. So he'd probably be 4th for me, but yeah, I also just like these quarterbacks enough that I would take a quarterback there at number 3 overall, because I think you have to.
I'm always the guy that says, if you're at the top of the draft and you need a quarterback, do it now because you're not guaranteed to get there another way. Having said that, if there was a team that would go away from the opinion of this, it is the New England Patriots, because I take a look at their depth chart, and let's get real here. I'm sorry, Patriots fans, but if you were to rank teams maybe like offensive line and skilled position groupings, like if you're comparing them together, New England's got to be 30th, 31st, 32nd, making probably dead last in the league. So like this is a very, very tough kind of team and situation to drop a quarterback in. But again, like I think New England's defense is good enough where they're going to be a top 10, 12 unit next year. And I think the new offensive infrastructure coming in with Alex Van Pelt and Ben McAdoo, they have a ton of experience in the NFL. They're going to be able to design a good enough offense where even if the offensive skill players in the offensive line isn't great, where I do think they'll be better than they have been. Like this is it's a team that's finished 24th in EPA, 25th in EPA per play on offense since Tom Brady left, and 27th in dropback EPA. It's been, the passing offense has been a disaster. And I think Eliot Wolf and the new regime is probably thinking in their head, we need to get the passing offense underway in the right direction. And that's first and foremost our number one task. And I think taking a quarterback is the best way to do that at number 3.
Yeah, definitely. And I mean, yeah, like you mentioned, their top needs outside of quarterback are wide receiver and offensive tackle. So like there are guys there at number 3 or even with a trade down that they could get, but they are pretty fortunate that those positions are also pretty deep in this draft where they might still be able to get their left tackle of the future in the second round. They're starting X receiver of the future in the second round. But ultimately what it comes down to, like for me, is there's different ways of looking at this. Obviously, like you mentioned, like some people might say like boot on the quarterback, get him next year, build around him first, get the wide receiver, the offensive tackle, whatever it is at number 3 or in a trade down. But like I said off the top, like I'm planning for 2025 if I'm the Patriots. So I take the quarterback and honestly just sit him for the whole year, especially if it's someone like Drake Maye or JJ McCarthy, who are so young already. JJ McCarthy is not going to turn 22 until the season is over. Drake Maye is still 21 years old. So these guys absolutely could sit for a year. So draft the quarterback, like put Jacoby Brissett out there without the wide receivers and without the offense tackles, whatever, let him play for the year and then build around that quarterback in the 2025 draft when you won't have the pressure of taking a quarterback. So even if you're picking 8th or 9th, you should still be able to get a quality tackle, a quality wide receiver, whatever it is to put around that young quarterback.
Yeah. One of my questions was going to be, would you sit the guy that they do take for a year? And I think the answer would be yes. Like you paid Jacoby Brissett. He's there is not a more perfect bridge quarterback in the NFL than Jacoby Brissett right now. And I actually do think he deserves a chance to start week 1. Like just from the past numbers, I thought he played really well when he went in for Watson. He played like sparingly well for Washington last year. So I do think the Patriots are kind of in a unique setup where they can drop. They don't need him to play right away, even if the situation is so bad.
Yeah, for sure. And I personally, like I said, if it's Maye or McCarthy, I'd probably sit them all year. Jayden Daniels, I'd be a little bit more willing to put out there earlier. But even saying that, I don't think I would put a rookie quarterback on the field until at least a month has passed in the season, because I want to see the offensive line settle. Like I want to see what it looks like week 1. If it's complete disaster, then I want to give them a month to improve, see what happens, see if that can settle. If they look great out right off the bat, still, I want to give them a month to settle, make sure that's not just an aberration, because right now, I mean, their starting left tackle is probably going to be, or is on paper, Chukwuma Okorafor, who was a right tackle in his time with the Steelers. I would expect them to take a tackle in this draft, either in the second or third round, maybe in a trade back up in the first, whatever it would be. But there's no guarantee that guy can start in week 1.
Yeah.
And then, and as far as wide receivers go, we talked about it a little bit already, but this is a team that's just kind of loaded with Z and slot receivers right now with Kendrick Bourne, KJ Osborne, Demario Douglas. They're starting X, if the season started right this second, would be either Kayshon Boutte or Jalen Reagor. Like that's what it's at right now. So even with that, I'd like to see the wide receiver group settle before I put a rookie quarterback out there too.
I'm an Eagles guy. One of the biggest misses of my entire life was liking Jalen Reagor out of the draft and being fine with that pick over Justin Jefferson. I actually learned a lot from that draft class, studying wide receivers like that. But it just makes me laugh when I was looking at the Patriots depth chart and seeing how high Reagor is there. The wide receiver room in New England is like the land of misfit toys right now.
Yes.
Like from Rudolph. It's not pretty. But you talked about some of the quarterbacks already, Drake Maye, Jayden Daniels, JJ McCarthy. Let's pass on the number one guy. Caleb Williams is going to go number one. I don't think New England needs to do too much work on him. So I want to get your opinion on where they should go, who's available. So number 2 quarterback, number 3 quarterback, number 4 quarterback, rank JJ, Jayden, and Drake Maye for me.
I would go Drake at number 2. Just because like it's the arm talent. And I know that he's not as accurate as Jayden Daniels. You know, there's a case to be made that he's maybe not as accurate as JJ McCarthy either, but there's just so much upside there. And he is mobile as well. Like maybe he's not as purely fast as Jayden Daniels or JJ McCarthy, but he scored 9 rushing touchdowns last season.
He had 42 carries for a first down on 3rd and 4th down.
Like
he moved. That was the most of all of them, including Jayden Daniels, who ran a lot.
Yeah. Oh, absolutely. Yeah. He can move. Like we're not talking about a pocket quarterback or like a statue back there. Like he's the best comp. And obviously it's a high end comp would be Josh Allen for him. So if you can get Josh Allen with the number 2 overall pick, and he's coming in much less raw than Josh Allen was when he went to Buffalo way back when. And so I'd put Drake Maye at number 2. I'd put Jayden Daniels at number 3. I'm not sure what exactly I was expecting when I did like a full deep dive study on Jayden Daniels, but I didn't necessarily see like a future superstar when I saw Jayden Daniels.
Yep.
I think he's going to be a solid quarterback. I think that there's a little bit of concerns with his arm strength. He's got the best deep ball, I think, out of this class. Like his ability to hit his wide receivers in stride for touchdowns on deep passes was just insane last year.
Yeah, his PFF stats from like 1 to 20 yards or 20 plus yards. Like he had like a 99 quarterback rating, 20 touchdowns, 0 picks. Like his deep ball was beautiful, and it shows up on tape as well, not just the stats.
Absolutely. And I mean, but I will say that it certainly helped that he's throwing to 2 first-round picks at wide receiver this season as well. And the one thing that kind of gives me pause is that back in 2021, everyone was talking about Mac Jones and his deep ball, but it's like, yeah, when you're throwing to Devontae Smith and Jalen Waddle and Brian, like Jalen Mechie, like, yeah, it's going to look better than it really is. So that concerns me a little bit about Jayden Daniels. And I don't know. I don't want to feel like I'm, just like putting all these weaknesses out there for Jayden Daniels. I'm just mostly stating my case on why he's 3 rather than 2. He's fast. He's a very good athlete. He's very mobile. I don't think like he's not as fast as Lamar Jackson. So I think
the Lamar comps are not there for me. I'm not buying. I see a lot of comparisons to Lamar Jackson. I don't see it.
He's great when he gets to run straight up the middle of the field. He's got great vision. He can pull off big plays. There were times though that when he was trying to turn the corner and run, toward the sideline, there was linebackers kind of beating him to the edge. There was safeties. So that would be the one thing, is that I wonder a little bit how that purely translates, because it's such a big part of his game. So Jayden Daniels would be number 3, just because I do still like his accuracy. I like his playmaking ability. And then JJ McCarthy is number 4. I think he might be a little bit closer to 3 for me than most people, just because I watched him just really hard. His ability to throw off platform, his ability to throw on the run is really impressive. His mobility, his speed are really impressive. I think that there's still some things to be done about his processing. His accuracy isn't always the best, but I also do like his footwork in the pocket too. He can maneuver the pocket really well. And a lot of times when he's maneuvering the pocket, he keeps his footwork like in place and ready to throw, which is such an important thing, because that's such a hard thing to teach quarterbacks. It seems like he's naturally coming with it. The one final thing is just his age. I mean, like I said, he's 21. He's not going to be 22 until January. That's big. So he's someone that I think that you can mold maybe a little bit better than some of the more experienced quarterbacks.
JJ McCarthy's like the definition of a prospect growing on you the more you watch him.
Yes.
To me, like the more I we did our quarterback episode like about a week and a half ago, when I was doing the process for it, I'm going like, man, like I really like this kid. I thought the Michigan State tape was awesome. Like, and then you just dive into the stats. Like one of my favorite stats from any of the prospects so far is on 48% of JJ's throws on 3rd and 4th down resulted in a first down. That was by far the most out of any quarterback in this class. It felt like whenever he was asked to do something, he put that check mark there. And there's games like the Penn State game where he's like 6 of 7 for 60 yards. Like that, that's the stuff you kind of have to push away to kind of get the full version of him, because like Michigan's offense did not allow him to really shine his talents, right?
Yep.
It was Blake Corum run first down, Blake Corum run second down. It was either a first down there or it was 3rd and 12. And it's like, JJ, go save us. Like that was kind of the process. And I feel like that hurt him a lot. I personally have JJ McCarthy as my 3rd ranked quarterback in this class. So and we spent a lot of time like trying not to rip Jayden Daniels for his weaknesses, but I do think like it matters a lot to the NFL. I'm worried about his size. I'm worried about throwing over the middle. He does not throw over the middle. And that's
McCarthy does that a lot more.
Yeah, McCarthy was like 17% of his throws to Jayden's like 9.8, and that 9.8 mark is very, very low for a quarterback in the top 5. I'm worried about he doesn't like the Lamar example, for instance. A lot of people are comparing to Lamar. Lamar has so many different arm angles he can throw with. Jayden doesn't have that in his bag, in my opinion. Like it's either he's throwing in the pocket or he's taking off and running. So I would be worried taking Jayden Daniels to the New England Patriots. Personally, I think JJ McCarthy and Drake Maye are better fits. And I'm also with you with Drake Maye at number 2 overall. I think he's a superstar potentially. I think there's a big drop off from Drake to the number 3 guy. I think Drake Maye is 100% worth it at number 3. And I'll go as far as saying this: I'm not buying the Jayden Daniels number 2 overall hype until I see that pick read by Adam Peters or whoever's announcing the pick. I'm not buying it. I truly believe that Drake Maye is probably going to, and I might be on an island here, but I saw the Mac Jones number 3 overall stuff. I remember CJ Stroud wasn't going to go number 2 overall last year. Like we've seen this movie before, so I'm not buying it until I see it read on stage at the NFL draft. So that's just kind of how I'm looking at the quarterbacks right now.
Yeah, no, I think that's smart. And yeah, it's anyone's guess at this point. Maybe it'll leak out beforehand, I think. But yeah, I mean, Schefter's saying it. That gives me a little bit of pause to say that it's not going to happen or whatever. But I don't know. We'll see. Because I know people who do have Jayden Daniels as their number 2 quarterback who are scouts in the league. So it's
Matt
not
Miller
like
of ESPN was just on here last week. He said Jayden Daniels number 2 at the gate. That was
so it's not like outlandish opinion or anything like that. I just, like you said, like I didn't even bring up his frame almost because it's so obvious but I mean, JJ McCarthy does have a smaller frame as well. And yeah, no, the throwing over the middle of the field, that was one of the big things that I noticed while watching him, is that all of his throws, all of his deep throws are to the sideline. So many of his throws are to the sideline. So that's definitely concerning when you don't see a willingness to do that out of a college prospect.
So I have a little take for you I want to throw your way. I kind of got Brett Favre vibes a little bit from Drake Maye. Maybe not like identical, but I thought like the gunslinging aspect, like there's not a tight window that Drake May's not afraid of. Like he was needling balls in when it mattered. He just that was kind of one of my comparisons to him. And then this morning when I was doing research for this podcast, I'm going, I know Eliot Wolf's dad was a general manager of the Green Bay Packers when he was there. And then I did the research, and he was the one that sent the 1st-round pick to Atlanta to get Brett Favre. So do you think Drake Maye is like Eliot Wolf's, I guess, diamond in his eye for this draft?
I don't know. See, it's funny because there was a rumor a couple of weeks ago that JJ McCarthy was Eliot Wolf's guy. And I did some research on it. I asked people around the team about it, and they were like, listen, like, Eliot Wolf is holding his cards close to his chest, like even to us. He's not letting people in the building know what his opinions on quarterback are. So I don't fully buy that rumor about McCarthy. I could certainly see that about Drake Maye though, just because there was so much success in Green Bay with Brett Favre, and there really hasn't been that like superstar gunslinger since Brett Favre. So yeah, I can certainly see those comps. And like honestly, Drake Maye is probably a little bit more athletic than Brett Favre was as well.
If you were to take a guess right now who the number 3 pick for the Patriots is, who would it be? Like if you were just to make a bet online,
probably Maye. I'm being a little bit cautious with all the McCarthy stuff, just because like we've said, there's a lot to like about him. But there's been so many rumors at number 2 with Jayden Daniels and JJ McCarthy, because there's been rumors there about McCarthy at number 2 also. Just the fact that like Maye hasn't been mentioned there, maybe that should tell us that Maye's going to be the pick. But
I think the schedule too, like I think Maye's the last of the guys to go to Washington. Right. Like I think he's going there today's Tuesday. I think this is meeting. So maybe that has something to do with it. Sorry for interrupting, but I think.
Oh, no, 100%. But just since there hasn't been that many ties between Maye and the Commanders, I'm like, well, it seems like Maye could be there at number 3 too, because that's such a big part of it too, is that like the guy has to be there for them. So if it comes down to Daniels or McCarthy at number 2, then that could just leave Drake Maye for the Patriots. And I know there's some people who would have no problem with that on the team.
If I'm a Patriots fan, I am celebrating like crazy if they get him at number 3. I think that's like the best possible outcome. You have a good feel on the Patriots fan base. What are they thinking right now? What do Patriots fans want their team to do?
Yeah, they definitely want a quarterback, and I think it seems like the majority of them want Drake Maye. When I wrote about Jayden Daniels a few weeks back, like people weren't that hyped about Jayden Daniels. When I wrote about JJ McCarthy, people weren't overly hyped about JJ McCarthy either. So it seems like they want Maye to be the guy there at number 3. And yeah, 100%. They should be very pleased if that happens.
Okay, so you did a mock draft on the Boston Herald. Please read it and check it out after this episode. You had the Patriots taking Xavier Legette, wide receiver out of South Carolina, in your second round pick. We already talked about the wide receiver position kind of being a mess for New England. I feel like the perfect outcome was quarterback, wide receiver, and offensive tackle, either flip-flopped in second or third round. So are you on the kind of same boat that they're going to go wide receiver at the second round pick? Because it's also a great area to land a wide receiver with how the prospects are kind of setting up.
Yeah, for sure. I'm torn whether it's gonna be. I think it just ultimately depends on like who's there, who falls. Because I even think they could potentially trade down, pick up another day 2 pick there, just kind of widen the scope, take 2 wide receivers, 2 offensive tackles, whatever it would be. But yeah, it comes down to one of those two. The tricky thing is that they do need an X receiver. Like they really don't need a Z or a slot right now. So some of the guys who are there in that range, like Ladd McConkey, some of these other guys might not be the best fit. So Xavier Legette, I think that he'd be a good fit. Adonai Mitchell, he could potentially be a good fit there. It limits your scope a little bit, but I think that there's still enough options to make it work.
Who's your favorite kind of day 2, day 3 wide receiver? Like it may not be Legette, you just had them taking him there, but who do you really like kind of in that area?
That's a good question. I think that there is kind of, flaws with all of those guys. I do like Legette just because he's got the size, he's got the speed, he's like 6'1", 220, ran a 4.3, whatever it is. He concerns me a little bit just because of the 5th year breakout that it took for him. He was 22 years old before he fully broke out. And I just think that, some of those guys are a little bit more slender. Like I mentioned, Ladd McConkey is more of a Z slash slot receiver. So unfortunately, I really don't think that there is like that perfect prospect for them, but there's definitely enough strengths with everyone who is out there that I think regardless, they can make it work one way or the other.
Yeah, they should. If they're at 47 and their minds are set on a wide receiver, which is not the best process, but the way the team is set up, I think there's a ton of guys sitting there. I'm a big Troy Franklin guy out of Oregon. I think he's a star in the making. I think that's the league, and everyone is severely sleeping on him. Keon Coleman could be there. Xavier Legette's a guy we already talked about. Do you think there's a potential chance that they move up in the first round to go get a wide receiver if they do find someone that they like? Because I was looking at the Patriots picks. They kind of just own their own picks, if I'm not mistaken. Like they have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 their own draft picks. So it's not like they have a ton of draft ammo. But do you think Eliot Wolf would pull the trigger to move back in the first round?
The only one that I would really specifically do it for is someone like Brian Thomas. I think that he would be worth it. I think that would require him to maybe fall a little bit though, which I don't necessarily anticipate happening. I don't necessarily see them doing it for Adonai Mitchell. I'm not sure if he's like the greatest fit for them there. So if anything, when I look at how the draft board kind of shakes out at wide receiver, I'd be a little bit more apt, like I said, to trade back for someone like Jalen Polk or Legette, Devontae Walker, especially if Drake Maye is the pick. Any one of those guys, I think, would kind of fit as well as the guys who might go in the bottom of the first / early second. So I look at them as all just not interchangeable by any means. But I just think that there's a lot of guys close together in that second / third round range.
So the New England Patriots haven't had a 1,000-yard wide receiver, since Julian Edelman in 2019. It's been a while. So they need to add some bodies there. A couple more for you. Offensive tackle, we discussed that the Patriots depth chart's not looking too hot there right now. And they need a starting left tackle basically for week 1. I don't think the starting left tackle is probably on the roster right now. Who would you kind of attack maybe in day 2 or day 3 if you're the Patriots looking for an offensive tackle?
I like Jordan Morgan. I know that his arms are a little bit short for an offensive tackle, but I think that he's got so much starting experience at left tackle. He could probably fit him in there right away. Patrick Paul is someone who seems like he's right around that range that the Patriots could potentially take in either the second or third round out of Houston. He's another one, great size, great athleticism, lots of starting experience. Those are the two that I really look closely at. The big thing there for the Patriots at offensive line is that they need a left tackle. Like Michael Onwenu is their best offensive lineman, but he's a right tackle if he plays tackle, and if he doesn't, he's a left guard or right guard. So like they need to be finding a left tackle. So a lot of these guys who are right tackles in this class, I kind of have to skip over a little bit. We'll see if they try to draft one and switch him over. But I don't necessarily love that idea. I think that there's really kind of a limited scope as far as I think about those offensive tackles. So that's one thing that might push me towards taking the tackle in the second round and then waiting on the wide receiver a little bit longer, just because it does seem like there's more limited options there. Whereas like if you take Patrick Paul or Jordan Morgan in the second or second round, then maybe you can wait on someone like Javon Baker in the third round or the fourth round at wide receiver and still get a player with a lot of upside at that position.
I'm a big Javon Baker guy.
Yeah.
I've hammered my fist on this podcast for many times. And you're right. The offensive tackle is going to be a swing of them at the end of the first round.
Yeah.
Like there's going to be a ton of guys going. So by the time you even get to the third round pick, you might not be able to find a starting guy. Everyone always says, "Oh, draft him and you can start." It's not that easy. It's not the way the NFL works. So, okay, I got to finish on this question. I'm sure you've been peppered with this kind of question since the last 2 days since he said it. But Tom Brady has said that he is open to coming back to the NFL. Doug, you've covered him for a long time. You know him pretty well inside and out. Are you taking the Tom Brady potential comeback rumor seriously?
I guess. I just like, it's so funny because he's never really done this before. And like that just opens up this huge can of worms. And
especially on a Vic Blends podcast.
I know, right? Like it's so tough though, too, because he's got the Fox job. I think he's got some deals with like betting companies, gambling companies. If he gets the ownership job with the Raiders, like he'd have to give that up. He'd have to give so many things up to come back that it almost feels impossible. But the fact that he's acknowledging it at all, I think is interesting. He specifically mentioned the Patriots, which I certainly thought was notable. But I mean, if he wants to come back, like just sign with the Patriots. Don't wait until the playoffs. Just like do it now. Make them playoff contenders. Don't wait until they're out of it. But I don't know. Well, I don't think so. But I do think that you have to take it relatively seriously just because he's willing and able to say it.
Won't he be 47 this summer? I think, right?
Yeah.
46. I'll be 47 years old. Like, that's what's kind of funny to me is like,
I know
it was interesting a year and a half ago because like he can still play. We saw it, but it's been a year and a half since he's suited up. So like, what does he look like now? I know he's probably been throwing the ball a lot. He's crazy like that. So maybe he's still got it, but it's almost like for Patriots fans, it's like that ex-girlfriend that just can't get away.
Yeah, seriously.
Yeah.
Now she's now she's teasing you too. So that's fun.
Exactly. Yeah. Throwing up potential other ex-boyfriend or boyfriend ideas, not just the Patriot.
Right.
Kind of way to throw it. All right, that's Doug Kyed of the Boston Herald. This is a great conversation, man. Appreciate you. Before we go, why don't you plug in where they can find your work on social media? Anything you have coming up? Anything you've already written that they want to take a look at? Anything you want to listen to? Plug away.
Yeah, absolutely. Just go to the bostonherald.com. That's where you can find my work. Go to my Twitter. That's where you can find all my tweets. So yeah, no, that's it's pretty easy.
Cool. Doug, appreciate you, man. Enjoy the draft.
Awesome. Thanks, Brenden.